Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If I could ask our panelists to go ahead and turn on their cameras. I'm still admitting a few folks who are in the waiting room, but we're so pleased that you're all here this afternoon and able to join us. Thank you for coming. I'm Marianne Burnetson. I'm the Associate Director here at the Graham Center for Public Service, and I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to put together programs like this for our students. We have our final session on careers in public service this summer held today, and we saved the best for last. In a few moments, you'll hear from UF experts who will share tips on where you can find the right internships, scholarships, academic opportunities, undergraduate research opportunities, and more to help you launch a successful career in public service. Before I introduce our panelists, a few housekeeping items. First, if you all would keep yourselves muted unless you are asking a question or speaking, that would be great. Feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions of our panelists or use the raise hand function. And finally, we are recording today's session and it'll be archived on the Graham Center website and available on our YouTube channel. So let's get started. Our panelists will each present for approximately 5 minutes and then we will open the floor to the students for questions. First, we have with us Manuela Hernandez, who is a UF graduate, and her experience in the Public Policy and International Affairs program, often referred to as PPIA, and other undergraduate pursuits helped her launch a career as a Foreign Service Officer in the U.S. Department of State in Rio de Janeiro. We also have Dr. Tim Karras, who is the undergraduate coordinator at the Bob Graham Center for Public Service and oversees the center's academic programs. Next, we have Kelly Medley. She's our external scholarships and fellowship coordinator with the University of Florida Honors Program. And she'll touch on programs like the Wrangle and Pickering Fellowships, as well as Rhodes Scholars. And finally, Dr. Joe Orser, who is head of global engagement with the Beyond 120 program and the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Dr. Karras, will you start us off today? Oh, hold on, Tim. You're muted.
Unmute myself. All right, sorry about that. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here with you all, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend this session. Hopefully we can relay some important information as some of you, or all of you, are at least considering some careers in public service. And I'll kick things off, and I'm going to share my screen here and give you a little visual reference point for the things I'm talking about. Let's see here. Slideshow.
Down in the bottom right, Tim, you can use the slide feature. There you go.
Does everybody see my slides? Okay, great. Well, again, I'm coming from the International Studies program, which is housed in the University of Florida's Bob Graham Center for Public Service. And so I'll be talking a little bit about how the Bob Graham Center has programs and internship opportunities that can help prepare you for a career in public service and get some exposure to this field. So just let me first say something about the Bob Graham Center for Public Service. This institution was established at the University of Florida in 2006 by former U.S. Senator and Florida Governor Bob Graham in order to create a community of scholars, community members, students who are committed to public service. So the center promotes the goal of understanding and engaging with communities at the local level, but also the national level. And increasingly, it's become clear that we have to engage at the international level too, which is one of the reasons why the International Studies program has moved into the Bob Graham Center. Okay, so as I see it, as you prepare yourself for careers in public service, there are at least two components of that preparation that the Bob Graham Center can help provide you with. And the first is academic knowledge and skills. Certainly to work effectively in public service, you need analytical skills to address community problems. You need exposure to the process of policy making. You need even economic and political theories to give you the background to succeed in your career. But preparation for a career in public service also involves non-academic preparation, sort of the hands-on experience to gain skills that are hard to replicate in the classroom. So we're talking about people skills, on-the-fly problem solving, leadership skills. And so these building the skills in this regard, not only build your own personal toolkit of knowledge, but also build your resume and show potential employers or graduate schools that you've been exposed, that you've tested the waters in the field of public service and you're ready to pursue that as a career goal. Okay, so internships and research. The first thing I want to talk about is the academic programs available through the Bob Graham Center, and there are two. There's an international studies major and also a public leadership minor. The international studies major, and some of you may be coming from this major who are attending today, provides an interdisciplinary approach to understanding the international system, global problems and solutions, diplomacy, culture, politics, religion. Students typically specialize in one part of the world, whether that's Latin America, Asia, the Middle East, and so forth, and develop a program matching your interests. So if you're very interested in economic change in Asia, then you would take classes that are sort of tailored to that particular interest. You'd also take foreign language classes, and our international studies majors typically study abroad too, and those experiences can get some exposure to public service and research. We also offer a public leadership minor, which is certainly germane to the discussion today. It's also an interdisciplinary program, but here for undergraduates interested in acquiring skills to develop as responsible citizens and community leaders. And these leadership roles could be in NGOs, as policymakers at the state or local level, as ethical leaders in the private sector. So the minor includes training in public policy, but also things like writing, an internship experience to give you some of that hands-on experience. All right, so those are the academic programs. And remember, I'm going through these rather quickly, so if at any point in the future you want to take a look at some of these academic programs or internship experiences that we're talking about, feel free to go onto the Bob Graham Center website where there's much more information. All right, you can also find some internship and fellowship opportunities through the Bob Graham Center. And this is what we mean when we say experiential learning, learning with the hand and not just with the mind, having those experiences in the field that, again, can't be so easily replicated in the classroom. And so we have internships that involve local government. The Gainesville Fellowship is a internship where you're working for the full academic year alongside policymakers and other folks in Gainesville city government. We have a Tallahassee internship that takes place alongside the time period when the lawmakers are in session in Tallahassee. A Washington internship that draws upon the University of Florida federal relations team that's housed in Washington, D.C. And here, students have an opportunity to observe Congress firsthand and get some exposure to federal policy in the areas of education, research, health, agriculture, the budget. And then we have another opportunity that's been organized not directly through the Graham Center, but there's an organization called the Washington Center out of DC that provides immersive internships and academic seminars to students. And UF is one of the schools that has a relationship with the Washington Center and sends students there every year to participate in those seminars and trainings that are so valuable once you're in the setting itself of Washington, D.C. Some of you may have heard about a trip that students affiliated with the Bob Graham Center in some way took last year to Doha, Qatar. So periodically there'll be some opportunities through the Graham Center to engage in international exchange. And that event that took place just last year, not too long ago, in the winter of 2019, I think in December, UF students actually participated with a panel from all over the world talking about issues of relevance to the Middle East, but also the United States and elsewhere. All right, and I don't want to take up too much time here, but it's also worth mentioning some of the research opportunities that are available through the Bob Graham Center. And the one that I'll highlight the most here is the Civic Scholars Program, which is a wonderful program which draws upon interdisciplinary majors from all over the university who participate in a research project around one theme. And they may approach it from different angles depending on the field from which you come, but last year's theme was climate change in communities. And so you can see how that would be relevant for social scientists as well as physical scientists. And if you want more information about that, feel free to go onto our Bob Graham Center website. There are also programs that allow you to work with faculty members, either composing papers for publication or to engage in research alongside a faculty member's research program. Okay, and then finally, the Graham Center also sponsors community engagement programs. The Gator Go TV Coalition is a get out the vote opportunity. So you can become involved with efforts to make sure people are aware of the need to register to vote in the campus and Gainesville community. And there are other student groups. Again, you can see our website for the current programming available. And if any of these opportunities that I quickly covered pique your interest, the Bob Graham Center website also has information about how to apply for these internships and research opportunities. And most of the deadlines come up starting in the fall. So you may not know exactly when the deadlines are yet, but all of that will be updated in the months. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. And if you have any other questions for me about the Bob Graham Center programming, about the International Studies major, the Public Leadership minor, you can feel free to email me. I put my email address up there. And I look forward to speaking with some of you. We were talking before we just went on the air here about how we have this abundance of opportunities available to students at UF, and it's often the case that you're just not aware of them. So, you know, it's to your benefit to attend events like this and to scour the different websites available for opportunities that may match up with your interests. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening, and I'll pass it on to the next panelist.
Thank you, Tim. And if anyone here at the presentation today has participated in any of these programs, especially the Doha Forum, feel free to drop a line in the chat. You might want to share some of your experience during the Q&A. Kelly, you want to go ahead and start your presentation? I think, Tim, we just need you to stop sharing is the only thing. Great, thanks.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you to Marianne for bringing me in here today. Give me just a second. Okay. As Marianne mentioned, my name is Kelly J. Medley. I am a lecturer in the honors program, so that's my academic home and where I teach and offer courses. But my real job, if you will, and what I do the overwhelming majority of here with my time at UF is actually coordinating prestigious awards. So I'm the external scholarship and fellowship coordinator for all students at UF, undergraduates, graduates, professional students, as well as alumni as well. So a lot of possible students come through my office. That is my email there, though I know Marianne will share that later on as well. I am a proud double Gator. I'm really excited to have returned to UF about 1.5 years ago in this role. My undergraduate degree is in history with a minor in European Union Studies. And then I also did my master's in higher education administration, essentially. So talking about international awards is really sort of where I still feel like a lot of my academic interests lie. And so I'm really happy to be here and partnering with the Graham Center. So my role really with prestigious awards is that I advise interested applicants through the application process, or even before that on whether they make good fits for awards and which ones and why. And then I also coordinate faculty committees because many of the awards that we have on offer actually require that you be endorsed by UF or nominated by UF to be able to apply for them at the national level. So I'm kind of doing that behind the scenes typically as well. So a lot of times though, I'll get like, okay, well, scholarships, yeah, we all need money, right, to attend school. That makes sense. But these awards are pretty different. They go by also a lot of different names, though they kind of really all encompass the same things, which is that they're really highly competitive, typically at the national or even international level. So you're not just competing against other students from UF usually, you're competing against students from all over the United States, or even the world. Like I said, they're typically extremely prestigious. And while funding is important, it's really not the main focus of what these awards kind of represent. We're really talking here about the variety of benefits outside of funding. We're talking about life-changing, really highly influential opportunities that can offer you mentoring, that can provide you more open doors for graduate study, language learning, international travel and policy experiences, but really pivotal life-changing experiences and those networks that then come with being an alumni of many of these awards. Pictured here, for those of you who can see it, is actually, she just graduated from UF this past spring. She's on the top row, second from the left there. Her name's Hannah Lyons. Hannah was a biology and history major at UF. She's actually starting UF Medical School this fall. But she actually won a numerous prestigious awards while she was here at UF as an undergraduate, and just kind of kept building on it. So this photo of her here, she actually won the Critical Languages Scholarship, one of the many awards she won, to study Korea and South Korea last summer. It's a fully funded 8-week opportunity where she got to take part in different cultural experiences. You can see her in traditional dress here, excursions. And again, that was a fully funded opportunity that she applied for and was able to secure. This is a very, very brief rundown of many of the awards related to public service that I work with. I kind of did divide them up here on the left. You have the ones that really you can apply for any year that you're an undergraduate, and also for some of them even as a graduate student. And then the ones kind of there on the right side are divided by which specific year these awards seek folks to apply to them. Kind of just, I guess, a few notes about this. These are by no means all of the awards that I work with. These are the ones that just have a far more direct connection to public service. Mary Ann mentioned earlier the Rhodes Scholarship as an example, and that is one of the awards I advise and coordinate for as well. It's certainly open to students of all disciplines, but it's certainly been thrust back more in the spotlight of public service with the presidential campaigns as of late, with Pete Buttigieg and Cory Booker, who are both Rhodes Scholars themselves. So yeah, do know that this is certainly not all encompassing, but these are the ones that definitely draw far more direct lines to public service. They all have different eligibility requirements. Just glancing here, I can tell you some of them require you to be a US citizen, some do not. Some look to fund underrepresented groups, some do not. You can also see some of them have a limit and a number next to them, and that's how many students UF can actually endorse or nominate each year for those awards. So those are something to be aware of. The two that I also have asterisks next to are actually the two that I do not oversee the coordination of specifically, but I often review essays and give feedback on those for students who are applying to those awards. So I'm happy to do that. As well as part of kind of my advising services that I offer here. I'm always happy to review those kinds of materials because it also tends to put you on my radar. I meet some students who come to my office about one award, becomes very quickly evident that that award is probably not really a good fit for them very quickly, but I've got about 3 others that really do fit them. So that's always, kind of a nice thing. In fact, here on the bottom right, you can see the picture of Lacey. I met Lacey as she was applying for the Truman Scholarship, actually, and she was one of the folks that we endorsed for that award. But interestingly enough, as I was reading through her materials, I was like, Lacey, have you heard of the Udall scholarship? Because like you are tailor-made for that award. And she was like, nope, never heard of it. What's this? So we talked, and she ended up being, you know, one of the 50 honorable mentions for that award this year. So we're super proud of that, because we haven't had anyone from UF really applying or getting honorable mentions or winning that award for, I think, over 8 years or so. So always a good kind of snowball effect there. I will also note PPIA that I kind of put under the any year. There are opportunities through that, and I'm actually hoping Manuela talks a little bit more about that when she speaks. Typically, the JSI, or the Junior Summer Institute, is a third-year award, and that's what a lot of people talk about when they do talk about PPIA opportunities. But PPIA does offer a lot of different opportunities, whether just weekend-long or week-long or what have you, open to people of all different years. So if you're a first-year student, there's probably something through PPIA open to you right now as well. But so you just kind of always want to be aware of what they do have. I think lastly, I kind of want to show, you know, this image here of the 8 students that we had from UF that it mentioned winning this overseas learning scholarship. These are the 8 students that we had last year that won a Boren Award. The 2 on the far left are Casey and Nikki. They're both actually graduate students. Then the 2 next to them, Ryan and Eileen, were actually both first-year undergraduates. They're going to be going into their second year. Ryan is actually doing the Summer STEM Boren Award. So this Boren is open to all students at any level, undergraduate and graduate, who are interested in learning critical languages and going abroad for a longer period of time to do that. So usually a lot of students affiliated with the Graham Center and their interests are really tailor-made, wonderful students for Boren. Sort of keeping going there, Abigail, who I'm kind of like circling right now. She's actually a transfer student and will be starting at UF just this summer. So we worked with her as well. And then we have Rafael, who is doing AFLI, so he's studying Portuguese, but will be practicing it in Mozambique afterwards. We have Catherine studying Swahili and going to Tanzania. And then Nico here is a second-year student going into his third year who will be studying Polish in Poland. So you can kind of see really just any less commonly taught language and an interest to go abroad, you are going to be great for this award. And we really love this award at UF, and actually placed in the top 5 of institutions for winners this year. So that's a really big deal. Why I highlight this award, especially with this group, is because the sort of, okay, we'll give you a lot of money if you win to go study abroad and learn this critical language. On the other side of it, the catch, if you will, but I don't think people attending this will think it's a catch, I think you'd all be really excited, is that you actually then commit to at least working for 1 year in federal government. And so you get non-competitive hiring status for that. So it's a really great way to earn this incredibly valuable skill that they want in federal government, and then have more or less guaranteed employment once you graduate in federal government. Of course, they like to see you go longer than a year, but 1 year is the service requirement there. So that's just something, you know, I would bring to your attention for sure. Most of the languages don't require prior study, but yeah, critical language learning will take you very, very far. And that's really in any department within the federal government as well. So just kind of want to highlight that one. Truman is an award too that, for whatever reason, it's tied to public service, and we don't seem to get enough students interested at UF to even fill those 5 spots. Or I should say competitive enough students to fill those 5 spots that we would nominate every year. But it directly is a scholarship related to public service, and will fund many, many thousands of dollars worth of years of graduate school just for a commitment to public service. So any of the the opportunities that Dr. Karras just talked about, if you're involved in those, if you're interested in getting involved in those are different things that parlay really, really well directly into a Truman application. So I do hope to see any of you who are taking part, in those particular offerings through the Graham Center, interested in at least Truman, but hopefully many more awards that we have listed here. So with that, I will pass it along to the wonderful next folks after me.
Thanks, Kelly. Manuela.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, thumbs up. Okay. So my internet is a little spotty. I'm currently in this cabin in West Virginia. So if I lose all of you, please forgive me. I'll try to reconnect. But I'm good. So just a little bit of background about myself. I went to UF and I graduated in May of 2016. I double majored in international studies with a focus on Europe and economics as well, both from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences before it moved to the Broadband Center. And I've done a ton of different fellowships and study abroad programs while I was there. After I graduated, I worked for a year in Germany, and then I went back to my master's at Georgetown University in the School of Foreign Service, and I'm currently a Foreign Service officer working for the State Department assigned to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. I'm an econ code officer, and because of the pandemic, I'm back in the States until things are better in Brazil. But I just want to highlight a few of the things that I did so that students interested can ask follow-up questions about specific programs. So the first sort of program that was already mentioned, I did the Tallahassee internship program, the spring semester of my sophomore year. So I was on the younger end of the students. Most of the students that went with me were 14 students. They were in their junior year, some in their senior year. And so I did that for the whole spring semester. I took one course on Florida politics, which was taught in Tallahassee. And I worked for a state legislator when I was there in the House of Representatives. It was a really interesting experience. I learned that I didn't want to work in politics, which is good, right? Because sometimes for internships, you find out what you don't want to do. So that was really great. And then through that program, I met a lot of friends who then told me about different programs. I found out about PPIA, which I also did. So that was one of the programs, which I'm more than happy to talk about. Second, I wanted to mention the third year, my junior year at UF, I went abroad and did an internship with the State Department in Dusseldorf at the U.S. Consulate in Dusseldorf. So there's different internships that the State Department offers through USA Jobs. You can go ahead and see. And so what I managed to do was complete 2 online courses for UF while I was doing my internship in Dusseldorf. And I was able to get some funding from the International Center to help pay off some of the expenses, because unfortunately a lot of State Department internships are unpaid. The one that I did was unpaid, but I was able to work with the Pol Econ section, the political economic section in Dusseldorf for 3 months. The duration of the internships that the department offers for undergraduates are between 2 and 3 months. So I was able to do the full 3 months, and it was really great. I had German beforehand, so it was great to be able to use it while I was there. But I do want to highlight, even in times of COVID, there's still opportunities for you to intern with the State Department. There's a lot of online internships that you can do. You can also find them on USA Jobs if you're thinking about it. I would definitely recommend. Then another thing that I did, I was able to study abroad in both Paris. I did the Sciences Po program 1 semester, and I have family in Colombia, and there was no program in Medellin, but I wanted to create one. So I worked with the International Center to create the specific program that I wanted to study about politics and development in Colombia. It was in Spanish. I was able to get it all recognized through UF and have that credit added to my international studies major. I say that because sometimes you want a program that isn't available, and you can create that partnership with the university overseas. And the center was really open to working with me. The international studies department was able to help me recognize it and validate it as one of the other courses that I would have taken if I were if I had taken a class on Latin American studies. So there's a lot of flexibility and options if you want to go to a specific country and city and study something. And then finally, I did the PPIA program, which was already mentioned, specifically the Junior Summer Institute program. And as was mentioned before, that is the summer before your senior year. So it's for juniors. I'm gonna post the link in the chat. I did the specific program in Princeton. So just to give a brief overview, it's around 3 months and you take different courses. The whole objective of the program is to kind of give you a taste of graduate school. So it's for students who are thinking about going into the public policy sphere, and you take really intense summer courses and between public policy domestically or internationally. I did the international focus, and then you take a writing course, public policy writing course, and you also get to do field trips. It was a great experience. I met a lot of people who were also involved with other fellowships that were mentioned, like Truman and Rhodes Scholar, and got to find out about different things. That's when my professor who taught for my international studies class at Princeton worked for the Pickering nomination board. And so he told me about the Pickering and the Wrangler Fellowship, which I later applied and became a Wrangle Fellow, and that's how I my program at Georgetown. So I also want to mention though, most of you, if you haven't heard of the Wrangler Fellowship, it helps students enter the Foreign Service with a requirement of completing graduate school and then working for the State Department for at least 5 years. But there's also a second program. It's called the Wrangle Summer Enrichment Program for undergraduate students. And I'm going to go ahead and also post that link in the chat. And this specific program is for who are at least to go to DC, and it's all fully funded. I believe it's a 10-week program, and you get a taste as well of public policy. It's similar to PPIA. Do field trips to different government agencies such as DOD, department. It's pretty cool. And so some students who do the summer enrichment program later on might apply for the Wrangler Fellowship, or might go into a different route. But the PPIA program has different universities. There's 5 to choose from, and depending on what you want to do, okay, sorry. I hope I'm not cutting out. But okay, but there's some specific fellowship, specific schools. Like for example, I just read, because they changed it. In UC Berkeley, the PPIA program is mostly if you're interested in law school. So you might want to research which programs you want to do depending on your area of expertise. That was the big thing that I wanted to mention. The Wrangle Fellowship requires 2 internships while you're in graduate school, and I also worked a summer in Congress in DC. So there's just a wealth of different things that I have found out. I've also seen that if you want to do something, there's a way to kind of look for funding to get it done. I would say I would try to exhaust all the different resources that have been presented to you already. And if not, I would ask the International Center to see which other scholarships you haven't heard of. As I mentioned before, I was able to fund part of my internship in Dusseldorf through funds like that. And when I studied abroad in Paris, I also got this extra scholarship that gave me tutors to help pay for some of the living expenses. So there's always different scholarships and funds. I would a wealth of resources that you might not even know of. But with that, I will close, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Manuela. Joe, you want to go ahead?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I will share my slides as well, just a few, and I will do my best to keep this short and sweet. Oh, that should be full screen, right? There, does that look okay? All right, so my name is Joe Orser. I'm Global Engagement Coordinator with the Beyond 120 program in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And Beyond 120, for those of you who have not yet heard of it, is kind of, I've written it here on the slide, the experiential learning and career preparedness program designed specifically for students in the liberal arts and sciences. I was talking with a student in the College of Business 2 weeks ago, and she was saying how, you know, from day one, they get career preparedness, how to present yourself professionally, drilled into them in just about everything that they do. Students in the liberal arts and sciences don't really have that. And so this program is an opportunity to touch base with students, have contact with students throughout their time at University of Florida. Two, think about what does this all mean? The classes that you're taking, the things you're doing, the organizations you're part of, what does this mean for your future beyond UF, whether that is in terms of a career or whether that's in terms of graduate study or whatever. Some of the things we do, and I'm going to go into some of these in greater detail, internships. We actually offer some internships. We also help facilitate others, both domestic, but we're also starting to become more involved with finding international internships and trying to help students find international internships. Coursework, study abroad, I'll talk a little bit about that. Excursions, these are both domestic excursions as well as international excursions. For example, over spring break, right before everything closed down, Beyond 120 took a group of about, I think, 24 or so Collegeville of Arts and Sciences undergrads to London for a week, where they met with UF alumni, met with industry leaders, talked about ways to kind of globalize their own preparedness, but also ways to think about how to perhaps look for work overseas once they finish. And in future years, global mobility permitting, we're thinking about similar types of international excursions, these week-long kind of intensive meet and greets with industry leaders to China and to Western Europe. Those are the ones I've heard of. Career coaching, skills curriculum, all of that stuff. In terms of coursework, and we offer a series of one credit courses that really are geared for students who are interested in using their time at UF to prepare for their career, but also for those students who are interested in a global career. We have a series of courses that go from the start, Professional Pathways, which is just kind of aimed at first and second year students starting to think about how to integrate professional preparedness, career preparedness into their undergraduate experience. Global Pathways, which as the subtitle there suggests, it's aimed at students who are starting to think about study abroad, starting to think about international experience, and how can they go about that in terms of finding the program, finding the time in their schedule, finding the funding. We have some courses that are perhaps more appropriate for students later in their undergraduate career. Strategic Self-Marketing in the Liberal Arts and Sciences is a great class for students in the third and fourth year who are thinking about how do I market myself for the job market now that I'm close to graduating, and so on and so forth. One class that I'll be teaching for the first time this fall is a study abroad re-entry seminar, and that's aimed at students who are coming back from overseas and helping them kind of envision ways to build on that experience. And I think the next slide actually kind of goes into this a little bit in greater detail. So help students kind of visualize how to build on that experience, both in terms of what are things that I had a fantastic summer in Peru, and now it's transformed the way I think about my experience. How can I build on that both here at the University of Florida in my remaining time, in terms of the coursework I take, in terms of the major I choose, in terms of the other international experiences that I kind of decide to go on. And how can I build on that experience for my post-UF career, whether that is in the job market or in graduate school. And so these are the two courses that I do teach. I'm, as Global Engagement Coordinator, I deal with the international stuff. And so Global Pathways, Preparing for International Engagement, Study Abroad, Re-entry Seminar. And if you want any more information about those, there is my email down there at the bottom. And this is the last slide, and then I'll stop. The other thing that we have at Beyond 120 is our free online modules that are aimed at, again, career preparedness, skills development. Some of those free modules include personal branding, professional materials, networking, and references. And again, these are all just important in terms of the professional development side of things. But also coming in fall 2020, look for a couple of modules that deal with how to find work overseas. And so I'm working right now on creating a couple of these modules that will help students put together a package that translates to an effective job search in the international job market. So that's something that I'm happy to work with students on. For those who are interested in these online skills modules, there's a link there for that as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks, Joe. And someone had asked in the chat box, we are recording this session and we'll be sending it out, and I'll be sure to get the individual slides from the panelists who shared those. That way you can access the links more easily. So we do have one question, a few questions so far. The first one is for Kelly. Sorry, Kelly, and of course now my chat box. Gus, do you want to turn on your mic and ask your question about the Rhodes Scholarship?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone. This has been really useful, at least in my case. So for Kelly I've obviously been interested in the Rhodes Scholarship, but it's really daunting from what I've read on Reddit and on different things. So for someone who is interested, not necessarily committed, what are kind of like the first steps to kind of start thinking about it, in the case that if it doesn't work out, I can look into other opportunities, but just to position myself or to be in a good position? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for your question. So I would say, not knowing what year you're in, and that's okay, because I'll kind of just float this sort of everywhere. You know, if you're a first and second year student, things that you should really be focused on are the things every first and second year student should be focused on, right? So thinking about connecting with faculty members, going to their office hours, just to talk, not just when you need help, getting involved in causes that you're really committed to, that you're really interested in. But generally for fellowships, the Rhodes is the most extreme in the sense of daunting and requirements. So you're right. If you're a U.S. citizen applying for the Rhodes, you have to have 5 to 8 letters of recommendation, and 4 of those letters have to come from faculty members. Many of the students I work with that are really smart, really awesome, really committed, to their field, some of them don't even know 4 faculty members that they would feel comfortable getting those letters from. So that's something, that it's not just about getting letters of recommendation, but getting that mentorship all along throughout your college career. Your faculty know a lot of things. They can turn you to different internships that, we may not all know about, that's specific to their fields or that their colleagues in industry run. There's a lot of benefits to obviously receiving that mentorship from faculty. But I think with a lot of awards, a student should never really start at UF as, say, like a first year student and think like Rhodes is the goal, right? We want you learning all the way along so that if a Rhodes then naturally comes as a next step for you, yes, you're prepared, you have a competitive application to put forward, but as Gus kind of mentioned, you have a lot of different things. Usually if a student comes to me and is interested in applying for graduate school in the UK, we start talking very specifically about what kind of programs, because there's a lot of different awards depending on the types of programs, what schools specifically. Generally speaking, if someone is a really great and competitive applicant for the Rhodes, I'm also having them apply for a Marshall and a Fulbright at minimum, because those awards have a lot of overlap and have not just in what they offer, but also in their application materials as well, right? So it's a really good idea to kind of invest yourself in multiple opportunities. This is funny, this is one of the few presentations when I talk about fellowships generally that I actually did not include my slide on Rhodes sort of likelihood of winning. It's the 20, I know Dr. Orser has actually seen that slide before when I presented to one of his classes. But in 2017, like 3.4% of endorsed applicants won the Rhodes, right? Like there were almost like 900 endorsed applicants, and endorsed meaning your school said, okay, you can apply for a Rhodes. So you come through my office and my faculty committees and we decide like, yes, we want to endorse you for the Rhodes. Not, the potential other people who even showed interest in it, just the people who are ultimately endorsed had a less than 4% chance of being selected for a Rhodes. So yeah, it's a very competitive award, but that's why we also focus on a lot of things to sort of help you reach those same goals, whether through multiple awards or other, opportunities that don't have to do with prestigious fellowships as well. So I hope, Gus, that was a long-winded way of answering kind of all of the things that you were sort of.
No, it did. Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope to work with you.
Our next question is for Joe. What will happen to the excursions offered by Beyond 120, especially the Washington one during time of COVID?
So we continue to plan with, hopefully, that, which is to say full of hope, that these types of excursions will continue, and they will continue eventually. The question is when. I can't speak, unfortunately, to the excursions planned for 2021 in terms of spring and summer, because it's just not clear whether we'll get this thing, get a handle on this thing or not. But we're continuing to work on these excursions, and so once we get the go ahead, we'll continue offering. We'll pick up on offering them, and that goes for study abroad programs generally. Behind the scenes, everyone right now is kind of working on the assumption, the very hopeful assumption that things will be okay in spring 2021 and then summer 2021. But we also kind of exchange knowing glances every once in a while that, it may not. But we're continuing to develop programs so that once we get the green light, we'll be able to offer as much programming as before, and actually even more programming. So we're kind of working to build on what we already offer.
Thanks, Joe. Reminds me, Joe and I both attended a global engagement internship conference that was all about moving to the virtual experience and still being able to help all of you have access to opportunities that are just as enriching. Our next question comes from Anna with the Beyond 120 program, I believe. So this is for all of you. Maybe one or two of you want to answer it, but what is your number one piece of advice for undergraduates to gain hands-on experience during this time of physical distancing and virtual coursework? Which is a hard one. Who wants to answer that?
I'll jump in, Marianne, just because it's fresh in my memory. I just received an email yesterday from a student, and I will read just, no, I'm not going to read it, but I don't want to reveal who the person is. But the gist of the email was, I could not believe how useful and productive my time was during this internship period, even though it was virtual internship. And, when push comes to shove, a lot of the work that organizations do is pushing papers and is bureaucratic work and is doing research on particular issues that, doesn't bring you out to the field, but puts you in front of a computer. Long story short, there are many, many ways to get involved. And all of these organizations have had to be creative themselves in trying to adapt their work for this new era that we're living in. And that, goes along to what the interns are doing too. And so it was heartening to hear the student express such, gratitude, and that she had such a wonderful experience in spite of the COVID restrictions. So, I would say proceed as if we're not in the midst of a pandemic, and, pursue the organizations and the type of research questions or groups that you want to get involved in, and rely on the fact that those organizations have had to be creative and will find something productive for you to do that will still help your resume and expose you to that the world experiences and hopefully as much of the same way as possible. So don't fret is my takeaway there.
I think that's pretty good advice, because all the internships these days are virtual in nature for the most part, and I think people are finding value. Go ahead, Joe.
And I might add, building on what Tim said, everything of which I agree. This is actually an opportunity, to reach out to the organizations that you really want to work with, that the distance may have posed an obstacle to you before. You may not have been able to take the time off to spend X number of weeks or months in Washington or in Washington State or wherever. But now that the work world is virtual, if you have organizations in mind and you feel like you have something to offer, send them an exploratory note saying, here's who I am, here are the things that I do well. Do you have any internships or volunteer opportunities available for me to help you with? Because whether it's a formal UF program or something you've arranged on your own, and if you do arrange something on your own, but you want credit, that can be arranged. But this is a great opportunity for you to practice entrepreneurship, getting out there, making those connections, and preparing yourself for a post COVID world. And I shouldn't say post COVID because it sounds like it sounds like it's gonna be with us. And virtual remote work is going to be with us to a greater degree than it has in the past. And so it's great to have, it's important to have that experience as well.
Thanks, Joe. Our next question is for Manuela. This comes from Hunter. You mentioned how useful internships often are at showing you what field you might not want to work in. For someone who is still unsure in which field they might want to work in, would you recommend getting some work experience right after graduation to gain some insight, or would you say getting a graduate degree first is most useful?
Yes, so I was kicked out and came back in, so I wasn't sure if I had already missed the question, but I just wrote it in the chat. So the internet is stable. I would just echo what I wrote. I think that graduate school in the US is so expensive. I would really want to be sure it's a program that I want to do before I invest so many thousands of dollars into a specific program. That being said, there's so many fellowships that were mentioned that I would like take a use of, whether it's Truman or the Wrangle or the Payne Fellowship if you want to work for the U.S. Agency for International Development, whichever program path you want to do. I would first of all look for a ton of scholarships in the US because it's so expensive. If not, I would even open up and like say, try different European schools. I mean, I was looking at a master's program in Berlin at the Humboldt University, which only cost 500 euros per semester. And that included the transportation for the buses and the metro and all of the trains. And so it was half German, half English, but there's full English programs in Sciences Po and even in the UK. It's way cheaper. And so if you might not be able to find an internship or a job, I would look at other graduate programs abroad that might be cheaper. Really great European schools as well. I am a firm believer that you should probably work for a year or two or have some international experience abroad before you do your master's program. Why? I think it's because your master's program, you're really specializing in a particular field, and you want to make use of however many classes you have. Just to give a brief example, for the Georgetown program that I did, the Master's of Science in the Foreign Service, MSF program, you have 16 classes for each semester. Some of them are required courses, I would say 4 of them. So you really only have 12 classes to choose from. And if you don't really know what you want to do, you not waste space, but you might not really specialize in a particular field that you want to take. And so I would say get into the workforce, whether it's an internship or you do one of the Fulbright programs or a Boren Fellowship, and immerse yourself in a field so that you have an idea of what you want to specialize in. And then when you're in graduate school, you develop skills that you found out through working that you still need to refine, whether it's data skills because you want to do more quantitative analysis and work for the World Bank, or whether it's public speaking because you want to be in some public speaking capacity later on, speech writing, whatever it might be. I think there's a lot of value in working after you graduate or having some internship or study abroad experience and then doing your master's program. A second reason, a lot of top schools, SIPA, Fletcher, Georgetown, Princeton, require students have some work experience before you enter their program. Just to give a bit of my own personal experience, after I finished UF, I applied to Princeton and to Columbia, and I got waitlisted into both, and I didn't get in. And I was just super crushed. I was so sad, but then I worked for a year, and I came back, and I think that year abroad really helped me. I worked for a nonprofit helping with higher education, and I really enjoyed it, and I found out I need way more skills in certain areas, and so that's what I focused on for my master's program. And I would say, if you don't get in, there's no harm. You can just reapply, and in the meantime, focus on something that you think you want to do. And just to echo, like, what if you don't know exactly what you want, you can always try and then change. That's also okay. I think that's what I want to say.
I think that's really good advice, Manuela. As someone who waited 8 years to go back, I would argue for work experience first. It also makes you a better employee, gives you a broader perspective of the world, whether it's what you learn in the courses you take as a graduate student or what you develop in the workforce. So I don't believe I missed anyone's question. If anyone wants to jump on now. Sorry, now I have another message here. Oh, here we go. I am an incoming freshman and have found this series very helpful. I plan to major in sociology and am interested in the public leadership minor. When would be the appropriate time to begin this minor? So I'm going to say that's for Tim. Yay, welcome to UF, by the way.
Absolutely, welcome. That's a nice combination of academic pursuits, sociology with the public leadership minor. It essentially addresses both of those modes of preparation that I talked about, the academic preparation, and then, you know, some more applied learning that you might get with the public leadership minor. My advice is to go on to the website for the public leadership minor, take a look at some of the courses that are required for the public leadership minor, and then in your first year or even your first 2 years, start taking some of those courses. That will do two things. It'll expose you to, you know, the type of knowledge that you'll be acquiring with that minor, and also it'll give you a head start when it comes time to actually apply for the minor, add the minor. You will have had some classes under your belt. So there's no right or wrong time to add it, but I would say, you know, at least take your first year to explore some of the coursework, and then perhaps wait till year to go ahead and add the minor. But you know, it's a minor that's increasing in popularity, I think, as more people seeing what's going on in the world and want to become engaged with it. So I applaud you for your interest in it, and I'm happy to talk more, you know, one-on-one when you do make that decision.
Thanks, Tim. It doesn't appear we have any other questions, so I want to thank you all for your time today. Really appreciate all.
Sorry,
go ahead, Manuela.
Sorry, I saw one question from Anna Cavalcanti. I don't know if she already asked, but she was asking about imposter syndrome and getting over that imposter syndrome. So just to kind of say really fast,
I did not ask that one.
Fellowship. No worries. And I just want to put a note out there. You know, if you don't put yourself out there, you'll never know. If you don't try it, you don't know what the experience is. And if you're not applying, who else is? And why not give it a shot? I've heard this phrase before, fake it till you make it. And I think there's some merit to it. You want to try different things, and you might meet different people who might be feeling the same exact thing. Imposter syndrome is very real. But until you try it, you're not going to know. And there's just so much more to gain. So the reward is way bigger than the risk. The risk is you don't get it, but you know what? You tried. And there's nothing wrong with that. And next time your application will be even more competitive because you know what are some things that you need to work on. And it's okay. I applied for the Wrangler Fellowship twice. I was a finalist the first time. I didn't get in. The second time, after I had worked for a year and had more experience, I got in the second time. So all that to say is it's completely fine to not make it the first time and to fail, but it's what you learn and how you make your application stronger that is what makes it worth it.
That's great. Kelly, do you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to add one little thing. I actually have a piece of data from my previous university where we asked students, all students who have applied for a fellowship or a competitive, you know, prestigious award. The question that we ask is regardless of the outcome. So regardless of if you win it or not, did you find the application process helpful? And we have never had a student answer that it was completely unhelpful. At most say, it actually really helped me clarify my goals. It helped me tell my story. It helped me become a better writer. It helped me understand what I want to go to graduate school for, which is really important. You know, so we get a ton of feedback about actually this was an incredibly clarifying and positive experience, regardless of if I end up winning this or not. No one has ever once said that it was completely unhelpful. Usually overwhelmingly, they say it's extremely helpful or at least somewhat helpful. So yeah.
That's really great insight, Kelly. Thank you. So now I think I did actually catch all the questions. Thank you, Manuela. And I just want to thank all of our panelists for their time today, and thank all of you who attended the program and who have come to 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these sessions. I would like to extend a very special thank you to Manuela, who has shared all of her contacts and her resources in helping develop this program this summer. And I'm pleased to say we'll be continuing it into the fall and partnering on with Beyond 120 to bring programs like this to you all throughout the semester. They will remain virtual for the fall, of course, and hopefully at some point soon we can be in person in Pew Hall again. Stay tuned for information on our social media or subscribe to our newsletter. I will send out the recording from this session as well as a link to the PowerPoints and everyone's emails. And please stay in touch and have a great rest of the August. So thank you all. Have a good day.